Awesome. Cool. So once I shut the doors, we'll get one more person. I guess we'll get started a few minutes early and get wrapped up so that you guys can go and enjoy the free beer at the after party. No. Got one more. Awesome. So today, my name's Steve Anness. I'm a senior customer success architect at Grafana Labs. So my role at Grafana is talking to our cloud customers, and they come from all walks of life. I've got some customers that are startups that are trying to figure out their observability journey, others that are coming from other tools where they're trying to do better, some that are making the journey to OpenTelemetry for observability, a lot of customers that have never worked with observability before. So while I primarily work on our cloud platform, what I'm going to be talking about today is completely open source. And in fact, our Beyla project was recently donated to the OpenTelemetry Foundation. So this is completely open source. Everything that I'm showing today, while you could go and do it with a free cloud account, or you could do it in Grafana Cloud, you could also run an OSS Grafana instance and be able to run Beyla yourself and do this with completely free and open source tooling. So we've found ourselves in this cloud native circus with every new container, every new application, every new microservice that gets spun up in an environment. We add complexity, and we continue to add this complexity. And it used to be, I come from, before joining Grafana, I worked with Xenos for about 13 years. I come from the infrastructure monitoring world, the application monitoring world. And it used to be a little bit easier, right? We had agents. In a lot of times, these were proprietary agents from Dynatrace or AppDynamics or Datadog. We had agents to instrument our applications. But it was a little bit easier when you had just a rack of servers and you kind of knew, right? You may have a database running on one server, maybe you had VMs, but it didn't really have as many moving parts as we have today. And now that we have all of these microservices, knowing what to instrument becomes a challenge. Then just having to go and manually instrument everything becomes a challenge. So there's been a lot of work over the years on this. One of the ways that observability tooling has been able to do things is by leveraging eBPF. So who here is familiar with eBPF? Awesome. So, and today's not a deep dive of eBPF. My primary focus is going to be on Beyla and what Beyla is, and then showing a demo of Beyla. But we'll talk a little bit about eBPF, which, since most of your hands were raised, probably will be repetitive. But basically, eBPF, it used to stand for Extended Berkeley Packet Filter. Some people may still say that that's what it stands for. But really, it's no longer constrained to packet filtering. And so for a lot of folks, it's no longer considered an acronym. So what is it? It's a just-in-time virtual machine built into the Linux kernel, which allows you to write and hook your own programs into the various kernel functions, as well as into user space. And this includes things like libraries and programs that are running. And you can think of this as a debugger breakpoint anywhere in the code execution. And this allows you to run basically safe sandbox programs inside your Linux kernel. And this is very ideal for cloud native, containerized, and ephemeral workloads. And this is how modern networking is powered, observability solutions, security tools. Some examples of projects that are built on eBPF today. A lot of folks in the last talk were talking about Cilium databases, things like Pixie for observability. There's all the SDKs for Go, for Rust, for your C code. And then we have everything that happens at the kernel runtime. We have observability, use cases, security controls, intrusion detection, again, networking security, behavioral security, all of these things that we can hook into an application. So hook in to see what's happening at the kernel space, hook in to see what's happening at the user space. We build these probes, and these probes are what can give us the information about what is actually happening at the kernel level, at the user space level, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we move along. Traditionally, if you wanted to instrument an application using eBPF, you would go in and manually write instrumentation. This is an example of a probe that is used in this is a piece of code here that you have HTTP, it's a uprobe for seeing what's happening get HTTP statistics about what's happening. You can imagine writing this would be very, very messy, right? And having to handle this on your own with all of your applications is probably not going to be scalable and will be difficult. So let us handle the messy work. Introducing Grafana Beyla. So Grafana Beyla, which has been around for a little while now, like I said, was recently donated to the OpenTelemetry Foundation, is our open source tool for zero code instrumentation of HTTP and gRPC services and clients. At a high level, the way that this works is, and I've got a slide that kind of gets into this a little bit more, but essentially, right, we are able to look and see what is happening. Okay, so a user makes an HTTP call. We can then see what that HTTP call was to, and derive how those applications work together, and what the dependencies of the applications are. We can take that data and pump it into to build tracing, to get metrics from that data, to get the events about what's happening. And this works very well with Golang, so HTTP calls, HTTPS calls, gRPC clients and servers on Golang, in Java, and pretty much any other language that has HTTP and HTTPS clients. And then we can export this data as metrics or as tracing to OpenTelemetry or to Prometheus.
So only Golang for gRPC?
So I think gRPC is now supported in other languages too, but I would say Go has traditionally been sort of the most robust there, just because of the way that they kind of wrote it. So internally, I mentioned, so those of you who are familiar with eBPF and have used it in other scenarios, you have these probes. And so the probes can run or basically be injected either in kernel space or in user space. So this is just kind of an example. You can see that you have some probes that are looking at the application runtime, some libraries, and these probes are, again, fetching what's happening. User makes a call. The probe can see that call, where that call is happening, what libraries are involved, and then informs it back to Beyla. So some features of Beyla that make this possible. We have the application feature. This is the feature that allows you to expose metrics for a whole service. So this is looking at a service level, not necessarily at each individual worker. There's a feature for our application process where it will then export metrics separately for each worker PID. There's the application span feature. This is how we do that single tracing that we talked about, so the per request, per operation tracing. And we'll show that in my demo, an example of what those traces look like. And then we also have the application service graph. So this would allow you to build a service dependency, and we do that for you automatically in Grafana Cloud. But that's, this is a feature of Beyla to get that information to build that service map out. And then we have networking features as well. The networking features are allowing us to monitor the TCP and UDP connections, tell us, what the clients are, IP addresses, that kind of stuff. And then we have debugging that can be enabled to give you a more deep, under the hood printing of detailed logs if you're doing some debug work. From a Grafana perspective, the Beyla, the three primary ways of exporting that data is either with Prometheus exports or doing OTLP endpoints. So in theory, right, like you don't have to be using Grafana to use Beyla. You could go and deploy Beyla and export this to other solutions that are OTel compliant. The example that we have here is Grafana Alloy. Grafana Alloy is our OpenTelemetry collector that Grafana maintains, but again, it is fully OpenTelemetry compliant. And you could use Grafana Alloy with other OpenTelemetry compatible observability solutions as well. And then another common scenario is just straight through cloud, using the OTLP endpoint there to send your stuff directly into cloud, which is actually what I'll be demoing today instead of demoing with Alloy, just to make it easier for the demo purposes. So I kind of touched on this when talking about some of the different scenarios, but how to deploy Beyla. So in all cases, Beyla does require administrative privileges. So this does make Beyla a challenge in environments like the AWS. If you're running in the ECS. So EKS will work, but ECS it does not have root privileges, and things like I'm trying to remember. There's another very popular similar kind of thing, Lambda functions, that kind of stuff, where you don't necessarily have root access. It can be ran as just a host process. So if you are on a monolithic application, you can still leverage Beyla. It can run as a host process. It can run inside of a container. The most common and is obviously with Kubernetes. That's where it makes the most sense, and as far as being an easy thing to deploy. And the most common scenario is as a Kubernetes daemon set. That's what I'll be demoing today. And then you can also deploy it as a sidecar inside of a pod. But of course, if you do that, then a single Beyla instance that's in a sidecar will only instrument that one pod that it's a sidecar of. So that's not a very common scenario, but could be useful in certain things. So let's jump into the demo. This is where the fun happens. So I guess there's probably another slide that we could have had here, and that's why would you want to do auto instrumentation? And we talked about the complexity, right, being one of the reasons. But another very common use case for this, and I see it all the time, where you have a disconnect between observability teams and the actual developers. The observability team has no idea what is even in the environment as far as the application stack. They just know that they're tasked with making sure that there's the service is meeting SLAs for these customers. So one way that you can just start to understand what your environment looks like is to deploy Beyla. And so that's what I'm going to do today. Is I've got an environment that's running the OTel demo. This is my live K9S that's running in the stack. And if you look through here, you'll see that we've got the accounting service, we've got the checkout service, this is the cart service. These are all from the OpenTelemetry demo. If you look through here, I have nothing else in here that's doing any kind of observability. I'm not running Beyla in here. I'm not running Grafana Alloy. I have no agents running in here at this time. So like right now, we don't have any of that running. If we jump into my cloud stack, and I'll show this two different ways. The application observability screen that I've got up here, this is a cloud only feature. And if you look, the last 15 minutes, right, I don't have any service data coming in. If we look at this from a trace perspective, which is the view that you would see if you were on just OSS Grafana, right? If you look the last 30 minutes here, I have no trace data coming in. So just to show you, I'm not doing any tricks here, right? I'm deploying Beyla in an environment that has no instrumentation. Nothing's coming to Grafana Cloud right now from this OpenTelemetry application. So let's talk about, we mentioned the deploying as a daemon set with Helm is the most common way to do that. That's the way I'm going to be doing it today. So I just share the docs here so you can see, right, these are tagged open source. This is completely open source. All of our Helm charts are open source. You can go out and grab them. We have Helm charts for Alloy, for Beyla. Basically everything that we have, there's a Helm chart available for it. But let's go and go to the next. What I've gone ahead and done here is, let's go to this window here. Oops. If I click on the right thing here. I'm not used to using I'll just do it the old school way. Yeah. So I've gone ahead and put this together as the commands that I'm going to be running. So just to kind of walk through this, right? I mean, for those of you in here, most of you probably use Helm every single day. So right, we're adding the repo, we're doing an update, we're doing a Helm upgrade, and then what we're feeding down here is our config data. So by default, when you deploy Beyla, it's going to instrument everything in the cluster. You can, of course, you may want to, if you were in the previous talk, one of the things that was talked about quite a bit was cardinality. In general, right, if you are deploying this in a production environment, you may want to limit it based on namespaces because, if you are like a cloud solution or even if you're self-hosting, you don't want to all of a sudden have, a million metrics in your system. So you can break this down by namespace and only instrument the namespaces that you care about or that are important to your business. And like I said, we're going to do from that previous slide where we had the OTLP endpoint. That's what we're going to deploy here. And I've gone ahead and I've already pulled my token off my cloud environment. Again, this would be the same kind of process if you were deploying this on an OSS local instance of Grafana. So we're going to copy this, go back to our shell, and then we're going to paste that in and hope that runs. And then, oops, that may have messed things up. Uh-oh, hold on. I meant to Control C out of the other on the other window. We'll give this Debbie just check something. It wouldn't be a live demo if
God's and check demo are harsh.
thought I killed it. Let's see. Well, we'll come back to that in just a second. It may actually be deploying, so let me try to go to this other window. That's what I was trying to do. And run K9S again. Let's see if it actually deployed. That's interesting. Did I change namespaces? Or did it get me? There we go. Okay. Now let's see if deploying. Good thing is we've got time. I didn't have that many slides. So, does anybody know when you're working with Helm how you can check to see if there's another deploy happening?
Does it not show up in Helm LS?
There we go. So let's see. It says it's deployed. Well, that's an old one. That was when I was doing some testing previously, I think, right? Because it's showing September 14th.
Lots of issues with them not going away too.
Huh?
With them not going away, I'll Helm delete something and it'll just stay.
Yeah.
Running it, we have to force that before it tells it to go anywhere.
That's probably not a bad idea. Just put it right there. No. Wonder if what can we do? See, we get to do this together. Did something. Oh, you know what? That one we deleted. That was my hotel demo. But hey, at least that worked. Let's see. Well, no, it's Otel. Otel, that's right. I was just seeing if I had that Helm previously there. Doesn't take long though. Doesn't take long to deploy that. We could probably get this back up and going, but well, may not be able to. But what I'll do instead is we can pretend that actually worked, and we can show it as in a different environment what you would get out of it. So let me just make sure this environment has the Otel demo running in it. Yeah, it does. Okay, so let's pretend that that I didn't jack that up, and that was me hitting the. I was trying to Control C out of on the K9S session, and I thought that I had gone back to that window in TMUX. I was trying to be fancy, and then I Control C'd out of the Helm thing, so jacked it up. But once you actually deploy Beyla, what it will do is it's going to go out, and again, it's going to look at the connections that are happening, and then we're going to start getting trace data in. And there's kind of two different views that you'll see. In the cloud view, which is what the application observability, this is kind of our cloud special sauce. where we can take the trace data that you're getting in and those associated metrics, and then for those traces and those metrics, we build out automatic dashboards for those red metrics, so rates, errors, and durations that you're seeing here. If you're running the OSS version, who here runs OSS Grafana? So quite a few folks, right? So you're familiar with the tracing, and actually let's do this in Explore, and we'll change this to the tempo database. So then we'll look and see, like, for example, let's see if we can get, oops, I don't know. Let's just go back to the, so I was just saying if we can find, accounting service, there we go. Let's just go into that one, go into Explorer there. So, right, so for that, if you're running the OSS version of Grafana, you would then just have the standard tracing that you would get coming in, right? And I think, since I mostly work with our cloud solution, I've run open source, but it was a while ago. I think the trace and drill down, I think that is an OSS feature as well, right? So you actually do get some of those automatic rates and errors durations as well. We can look at what's coming out of the OTel demo, add that to our filters, right? So we have the accounting service, that service that you saw earlier running in my demo, the cart service. But all of this trace data that's coming in, if we go look at the tracing, right, all of these traces are coming in from the auto instrumentation. Just some things to note here, right? So with Beyla and deployed in that with the Helm chart, we're automatically going to do things like set these resource attributes. So this will become helpful for you later on if you are doing correlation. You see, we have right, the SDK. It says, right, this is coming from OpenTelemetry eBPF instrumentation. That's Beyla, right? Again, Beyla itself is now part of the official CNCF's OpenTelemetry eBPF instrumentation project. So you could use Beyla even if you're not running Grafana. Really, I know we're way ahead of time, but that's really all that I had, assuming that the other demo worked. I guess I had one more slide, because another question that comes up frequently is in regards to how much of a, basically how much of a burden is it to run this in an environment? Overhead, yes. And so the good news is not a ton, right? So we've broken this down with various different scenarios. You'll see here that the scenario in which it's going to take the most CPU and memory is going to be, now I believe that this testing was done using, I think, the OpenTelemetry demo. So like, it's a single web application. As you have more complicated applications and larger environments, these numbers are going to be a little bit different. But this gives you sort of an idea of at least the exponential growth of the footprint that you're going to see depending on what your scenario is. So, like I said, the network with the network enablement, you're going to see an increase because of there's a lot more metrics being generated, and that's uses the most memory. Your CPU footprint is the most, obviously, when you've got debugging enabled. And then second to that, the next biggest thing for CPU is the OpenTelemetry metrics are being enabled. because then that is including the OpenTelemetry metrics exporter, so you're getting a lot of additional metrics being exported specific to OTel stuff. But like the baseline, pretty small footprint. By default, the network feature is disabled, so like when you first deploy it, so you don't get the additional networking things or networking metrics. But so by like the default is Beyla itself. You can see the next thing. All OTel demo apps are instrumented. So pretty small footprint there. And in terms of getting involved, so the other point of me being at this talk today, obviously, right, is we want to get the word out about Beyla, and especially because we just donated this to the OpenTelemetry Foundation. We do have a public Grafana Slack, so you can join in there. You can join community.grafana.com. And we also have I should have included it on the slide, I believe Wednesdays at 4 p.m. And that's in our, we'll just go it's in the GitHub. It actually says the time. I can't remember off the top of my head if it's at Eastern time or Central time, but we have our community calls at UTC. So that's going to be, because that team is in
11 a.m. our time?
Yeah, I believe so. So second Wednesday of the month is when that is. So we do have a community calendar as well here linked to. So if there's other projects within Grafana that you're interested in, or interested in seeing what other talks that we're going to be at, they'll be listed here on the community calendar. And you can get to that. I'm sure you can Google it, but in the Beyla repo that's in the slide, you can link to it there. Any questions on Beyla? Hopefully I can try to answer them. Yeah.
Can you go back to the
Calendar?
No, the slide where Beyla fits into the ecosystem. Can you have a slide present again?
Well, you're talking about just
Yeah.
which slide?
Can't remember I think that's the one.
This one?
No, I think it was that one right there. Yeah, Tim.
Well, this was more of talking about the ways in which, so again, the probes are informing Beyla. Beyla takes those events, and then it will send those events, and those events will be in the form of typically tracing in metrics. It could also be logs.
Yeah. So you still need Prometheus scraping tools then, I guess.
Not for the if you're just caring about the stuff that's being collected from Beyla. Now, okay, if you're using Alloy, you're going to have okay. So if you're using Alloy, you're going to have, and I can show you an example Alloy config, but you will have to use the Beyla component, right? So if you're using Alloy, this is where you would use the Beyla component, which will then capture those trace bands.
But well, I'm guessing for tracing, I want to just I want to define my sample rate and then capture full traces on air. Where is that configured?
So in that case, right, I think you would focus probably on this on the second option, right? So you would send over your metrics and tracing into Grafana just as like an OTel endpoint, and then if there's any kind of if there's any sampling configuration you want to do, so like head sampling, tail sampling, if you're doing any kind of filtering, you're going to do that in the Alloy configuration.
That's part. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I recently did this. Is this what? I thought I used Glue to do this, but basically we were doing Prometheus
mean, so that's a little bit different, right? So that, I mean, that is a way, right, to do that. And we have a lot of Grafana users that never use our backends. You know, we have a very robust CloudWatch plugin.
Yeah, we use that.
And so with the CloudWatch plugin, you're literally just querying CloudWatch data from the Grafana front end using the CloudWatch, you know, their own query language and everything, right?
Yeah.
You're not storing that in our backends. What we're demonstrating here is stored in our backend. So why? Yeah, and it's probably a good question. Why would you want to store stuff in our backends? Well, if you're an OSS user, there's still advantages at some point with scale, even at, you know, cost considerations. You know, Mimir is a very highly scalable database. If you're a smaller shop, you know, just going directly to CloudWatch probably is fine. At some point, right, then that can get very expensive too. If you're storing other than CloudWatch and you're querying CloudWatch and they're charging you every time you query, right? So it can get very expensive. So that's the other reason. If you are, say, an enterprise or cloud customer of Grafana, storing in our backends gives you, well, for example, like the tracing drill down, and you know that we were showing earlier, right? Like this ability to see in this view the rates, errors, durations, like this view. This view you only get if the data source is a tempo data source. So this view is only going to work as if you're using our backends. So if you're comfortable querying your data in CloudWatch, or you know, like the previous talk has ClickHouse, we have a ClickHouse backend or plugin, like you can. Grafana believes in the big tent as a visualization platform to connect any data. To get added features like correlation, like the service map, things like that, that's where putting the stuff in our backend makes sense.
So you guys are like a one-stop shop. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
So we're pivoting everything to Grafana certs.
Uh-huh.
What's the main advantage for those that are kind of focusing on certs with this?
Right. And we're going to be we're going to be announcing some stuff with that next week at OpsCon in London. But yeah, essentially, right. That's the direction in which we're going, is to take all of this data, right? You have that service map data, and so if you look at, for example, if you go back into, I didn't show this a lot. You brought up certs. I didn't show this a lot here because it is a certs is a enterprise cloud feature only, right? That's not something that's available. That's not something that's available on the open source side. But if we go into service, there's two ways to get to it. Yeah, there's that way to get to it, and the other way to get to it is back to the application observability, which is what I wanted to click on. If I click on one of these services, right, and I click on the service map, this service map is generated from a certs. And so, yeah, that's, I mean, I guess maybe I missed the question. You're asking how does it tie into it?
Well, I did not know that the application view and the search view is the same thing.
I mean, it's not exactly the same, right? I mean, we're just saying that data that's there is from that.
Well, we've spent a lot of time working with Grafana to get the certs working.
Okay.
So I didn't know if you have to do things in a very specific way.
Yeah, I mean, so and there's a lot of work to make that easier. Obviously, that's primarily on the enterprise and the cloud side, because that is a feature that's only there. But yeah, I mean, that is the future of where Grafana, the observability side of it. I know he had a question, so hopefully he goes back. Or the observability side of like a one-stop solution, right? The company Grafana. That's the direction in which we're going, right? Is to be able to leverage things like this RCA workbench, get to your root cause analysis, leveraging AI and ML, things like that. I'm sorry?
The RCA workbench AI.
I mean, and again, there's work that's constantly going into that. For the purpose of like the community talks, Focusing obviously on what's available in the OSS platform, which everything that I show as far as the Beyla side, that's completely open source. If you're already using Grafana, all of our backends, so Mimir, Loki, and Tempo, all of those backends are open source. So you can run those backends yourself. That's what the previous talk, right? He talked a lot about Loki because they're running Loki. He mentioned Mimir. The thing about cardinality he talked about, that's a lot of what I do is work with customers on cost management. On our paid solutions, we have ways to deal with that with adaptive telemetry to help you control that. But yeah, I mean, there's sorry. Yes, you're talking about if you have things on, you're talking about Private Data Source Connect or something else. Yeah. So that's like if you have, and that's open source as well, right? The Private Data Source Connect is open source. So that's if you have resources that are on-prem or somewhere where you don't have direct access, we can build a SOX tunnel to be able to collect data, scrape stuff from those resources. Yeah, there's a lot to the solution. I got really excited about the Beyla stuff just in working with my customers, and I thought it'd be fun. To be honest, I put this talk together for me to try to dive into eBPF more because I was kind of familiar with it. I've been around in some of the Linux open source stuff for a few years now, but to see it used in this way, not just for like a security use case, was pretty cool.
So does it, you don't have to have an eBPF CNI running for it to work? It's just any intermay self-certifying or?
Right, because Beyla is the eBPF agent.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
With respect to eBPF probes, is it like set of static probes in Beyla, or like it has some smart way of like figuring out where to attach? Like let's say like a low length HTTP serve, but like I'm not using those standard library tools. Does it work, or is it just a set of static probes?
That's so. Whether or not the probes are static or not is something that I don't actually know for sure. Right? I know.
Because on the slide you
Yeah.
only said other languages, so like like C, for example. How does it know like which HTTP framework they're using?
Well, right. So there are going to be markers, right, in the to be able to like it can look at the headers of the packet, right? Get transaction data from the packet to kind of know.
Well, I mean, like it needs to attach probes to the code. So is there a like smart way of it figuring out where to attach, or it's just like a set of static probes for standard library?
I don't know for sure. I mean, my assumption or the way that this is working, right, is that we're not attaching what we're.
Well, you have to attach it to
Right.
the function.
Right.
Somewhere, right?
Yeah, that is a very good question. Something I should definitely read up more on and understand more of our deeper internals of how this is working. You're probably right that it is static to some extent, right? Because, like for example, the Go instrumentation only supports specific libraries, so that would imply that it's somewhat static.
You also mentioned Beyla used for security monitoring or not?
Beyla is not. Beyla is not. No, Beyla is primarily, Grafana is not. We have customers and we have users that have security use cases. Traditionally, we've not signed up to do that.
I mean, like.
I could see, right? Like there's probably use cases, but no. Like
No, I mean, like I'm trying to figure out the mental model, especially in this DNCF and eBPF Foundation. You have all these projects for monitoring with eBPF, and they basically fall into two categories, like observability versus like security. And I cannot really understand
me, right, like if you ask me, okay, what's the difference? I mean, a security use case is you're using that data, like you're using the data about a user making a call to a database. You're using that data perhaps to try to do intrusion detection, to know that you've got some user that's making this call over here. Let's go and investigate to see why they're making that call. Now, so it's just how you take the data, right? So a security solution might take that data, log that data as like a
This is a receiving side, right? Kind of like you say, Beyla or Falco kind of produce GPS-based telemetry. Can I use Falco for observability or Beyla for security? If I have the other backend do what you say, like take this data, either do a security alert on it or produce a nice spanner for like observability.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So you see the data it's exporting, right?
Yeah.
If you could take that data and probably, it's open source. You could take that data and go build you a security solution with it, right? But that's not, as far as like Grafana, that's not our use case, and that's not what we push. But yeah, I mean, I like you said, it's the same data. So as long as you had something that could consume it and make it a security data, that would be good. So I know we're technically out of time. Anything else? No? Okay, awesome. Let everybody go. Sorry, the demo itself did not work.